Hello, hello. We are grilling with Laura Pauli. Cucinatestarossa is going to join us in 1 minute, and we're pairing wines from Bodega Tapiz in Argentina, some Uco Valley and some Patagonia. I had the pleasure of interviewing Patricia Ortiz, the owner of these three estates, on my vineyard chat, which is in my stories. So a half hour, much more in depth. The story of the property, the story of the wineries, and the much more terroir information. So we're just going to be talking about pairing and cooking demo today, and then some tasting notes and how to pair these wines. But for more in-depth information, just go to my vineyard chat in my IGTV, but it's in my stories today. So Laura, Instagram is apparently slow today. It's telling me to hang on. So, oh, there's people, so we're good. Laura will be here any minute. Hi, Nadine. Y'all should follow Nadine, who just joined here. I got to taste Loire Valley wines with her all day on Wednesday, and it was a blast. She's one of my favorite people to follow on Instagram because she keeps it real, which I gotta say is hard on here to always. We always show the positive and try to act everything's perfect, and I think Nadine just keeps it very real. And there's Laura. Siècle Paris, welcome. Hi, Laura.
Hi. Hold on.
How
Let me
are
run
you?
back. Let me run back around.
Your mise en place is
Can you
good.
see me?
Oh, I can't see
My
your
head's cut
face.
off.
You're
All
gonna
right.
have to adjust it. While you would do that, I was just saying that I interviewed her in my I interviewed Patricia Ortiz, the owner of these three estates, in my Vineyard Chat series on my
Right.
IGTV. So we're just really going to focus on pairing and not a bunch of wine nerd stuff, but
Okay.
pairing and cooking and a little bit of tasting notes and that kind of thing. So,
Okay.
how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. We haven't talked in a while. I was down
I
in
know
Mexico drinking Cabernet.
you've been busy. How's the
So
Cabernet in Mexico?
it's good. It's big. It's,
It's big, right?
similar to an Argentinian cab.
I think it
So
inspired this a little bit too when you gave me your things you wanted to cook. I was like, oh, nice.
yeah, I'm trying to as part of our thing, I made blue cheese butter and I'm trying to get it out of the mold and it just hasn't had time to freeze enough. So
Oh, okay.
um I'm like trying to MacGyver it out and keep the
Wrestling with
shape.
it.
Yes. Ah,
They're so cute though. They're
but
little hearts.
yeah, I did little hearts,
So cute.
little blue cheese butter hearts.
Okay, you're gonna have to explain
So
blue cheese butter to me in a minute when we get
I
there.
will.
But so what's
Sorry.
the game plan today? What are we gonna cook first? You're so good about planning things out so that it's just like boom, boom, boom.
So I tasted these wines and they had such big flavor.
Yeah.
So you wanna pair it with something equally as powerful. And as you said, it's grilling season. It's summer, so everyone wants to get out by the grill. So um, I marinated some steak in gosh, there was soy sauce where I used tamari
Oh, right.
to not do gluten. So I did tamari, ginger, it's sizzling behind me. Soy sauce, ginger. I put in
Is there an
a whole
orange
bunch of spice.
component?
No, I didn't put in orange, but that would actually be really
Because
good.
that's more ponzu. This is just more like a soy marinade.
Yeah, it was more kind of that plummy flavor. I put in just
Oh,
a few dashes of ponzu, a lot of spices and
okay.
herbs. So some of the same things that I put into the lamb. So just a lot of, I just, I don't, this is why I'm not a baker because I throw stuff in and I taste it and I throw stuff in and I taste it. So, so just a lot of, the soy, the ponzu. I put a dash of, I'm blanking on the name, the hot sauce. And
And Laura, when we talked once, you did a demo with fish, and you sort of how long do you marinate red meat?
so meat you can marinate overnight.
Okay,
With fish, you only want to do it an hour because the acid will start to break down the
I see.
fish and it'll get grainy.
Hmm.
But with meat, I mean, the whole point of it is to tenderize it. So with the marinade is really the acid in it will start breaking down the meat. So you want to use a tougher cut of meat. You don't want to use like a filet mignon or
I
something
see.
beautiful like that. So that's why it can go overnight. You really want that flavor to infuse into the meat. So if you can do it overnight, that's ideal.
Okay.
And it's just all about infusing flavor. That's the whole point.
Okay.
Marinade is breaking it down a bit and then infusing it with flavor. So whatever you've got, just throw it in. So I've marinated. So I've got some skewers going.
Okay.
And then I also made lamb meatballs, because lamb and cab are so good together. And I used Suzanne Gowen's recipe. Suzanne owned AOC and Luke down in LA,
Okay.
which is one of my favorite restaurants down there. And so we put in, with lots of great flavors. So there's cinnamon, cumin, red pepper flakes, cayenne, black pepper, breadcrumbs, parsley. I threw in a little mint because, of course, lamb and mint are love and marriage, horse and carriage. A little bit of heavy cream, breadcrumbs. And, for my breadcrumbs, what I do is I always make croutons for my soup. And I'll always use a cookie cutter. So I'll always use like a little heart cookie cutter. And so all that bread around it, I save it and freeze it.
Oh, right.
And when I have enough, I just put it in the oven and dry it out.
Yeah.
And then I just blend it in Cuisinart. So I've got fresh breadcrumbs.
And you
so
keep it in the freezer or just in the cabinet?
Yeah. No, I keep it in the freezer.
Okay.
Yeah. So I always have breadcrumbs on hand.
But so we kind of talked about this, but I think just instinctually you went for, rather than just grilling a steak, which anybody can do, and God bless, go do it. But you wanted to add a little level of sophistication you're going to make it look easy. I know it's fairly, you have to be smart to come up with it, but you're going to make it easy for us to cook at home. But they all have this umami component that's like, I feel like these wines have this real rich depth that is what we're trying to marry. And while you're talking about that, I'm going to show you my umami thing, because when you did these things, I thought, oh, I'm going to do my shitty cooking version of grilling. No. These are seaweed burgers, which seaweed is a good source of MSG. So there's an umami thing in there. They're from a brand called Akua that is making them out in Maine. They're pea protein, mushroom, black bean, and seaweed. And they're really good. So I'm going to be noshing on that while you're making this fancy meat.
And now that I have about 8 pounds of seaweed left over from our last.
You can, exactly, from our cooking demo with seaweed, you have tons of it left. Although it's actually, what, a half a pound of
exactly.
weight?
I'm slightly exaggerating. Yeah, so for the meat, I don't know if you guys can see this.
Oh, Odila's here and says hi.
Oh, hi, Odila. Thank you so much for doing this. So for the meat, I just got a big steak. And you guys can see this, and I just cut about an inch off.
Okay.
And then I cut it in half lengthwise.
Okay.
And then I just make cubes.
Oh, okay.
And it's also a great way to portion, because when you put a bunch of food out, people just grab food and take it, and then at the end of the night, you're always going through and you're like throwing out so much food. So it's sort of a way to portion it as well. So I just did skewers. I did five little skewers. I threw some tomatoes on there, or four little pieces of meat, and that's really all people need. But if they see, a slab of steak, they're going to take the whole steak and probably
That's very
half
smart.
of it.
And then they can always go back for more if they want.
Right, exactly. And then one thing you want to do when you're grilling it is take the marinade that you marinated it in. So I'll show you here. So I've got we'll skewer some and start cooking some. But what you want to do is take that marinade and you want to baste with it, but you've had raw meat sitting in this marinade, so you don't want to put it back on cooked meat. So what you want to do is just put it over if you have a little cast iron pot, Lodge makes them, and get a little cast iron pot and just put it on the grill and let it just simmer for a little bit. You don't want to, put it on the corner that's cool, but you want to cook off any bacteria that came from the raw meat. Before you
bring it to a boil?
Yeah, bring it to a simmer, which is basically just a low boil. Right. Okay. So and then you can baste it, because you really don't want to put and it just adds to that great flavor.
Nice.
And just baste it a few times, and oops, can you hear it sizzling?
It's great. It sounds good.
Yeah, and so I just whatever you have. You can do vegetables, tomatoes. I love the flavor of caramelized tomatoes. So that's why I skewered these with tomatoes. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to serve them. So one of my favorite things is, and this is like, we're putting in a ton of flavor, is caramelized onions.
Okay.
So these are like my favorite things on the planet. And I had a few onions sitting here the other day that were starting to talk to me when I walked by. So I thought I better cook them. So you just slice them up and put them over the stove, put them in a big pan, a thin layer, and just let them caramelize. A little olive oil, salt and pepper, and if you want to put a splash of balsamic, and just let them caramelize. And then they're good in the refrigerator for a couple weeks. So so this also adds another level of that umami flavor that we're looking for. And so what I'm going to do is, what I recommend is if we take, oops, there goes my honey. If we take our plate and then add, just put some just put some on your plate, some caramelized onions. And then if we take our skewer and we take a fork, and then you want to pull them off the skewer. Whoops, my tomatoes are bursting. And just put it right over, and you can even put these on a on a bun or something. Sure. But just put that over with the caramelized onions. Mm-hmm. So you've got so many great flavors going here. I mean, you've got and it's so pretty. And I don't know if you guys can see this. So you've got the caramelized onions, which has that really beautiful, earthy caramelized, but that little sweetness in there. Mm-hmm. And then you've got the caramelized tomatoes, which have got a bit of acid for that kick, but also that deep earthy flavor. And then the grilled meat with the soy sauce and the ponzu and all the spices. So there's just so much flavor here that you don't need to add very much to it. You're done. And one trick that you can do is, if you don't want to spend all day standing by the grill, I know guys like to do that, but if you don't want to spend all day standing by the grill and turning, what you can do is you can cook these until about 75% done, and then just throw them on the grill to get, just bake them ahead of time in the morning, and then, and roast them, I should say, until they're about 75% done, and then just finish cooking them on the grill. So you get that grill charred flavor and you get the pretty marks. So that's what I did with these guys. So, I baked them off a little bit, and then I'm getting the grill marks. Awesome. with the grill pan. So that's, and I just think, let's give it a try with the Zolo.
Yeah, the Zolo. Okay.
Yeah, and I love the story behind the wine, how it was named Zolo because Patricia was always working in a different city and her husband was alone.
It's like an homage to being alone. I love it. So this wine is so rich and unctuous. And I just want to, I don't like to talk about price. These are all very affordable. Mm-hmm. And a friend told me that, California cab might be going up in price this year because of the fires and stuff. And so this is going to be, if you're really looking for some value, these are going to be some great things, and they're easy to find. They actually don't have the Zolo cab on wine.com, but the other two were there.
Right. I mean, this one's $13. I mean, the Zolo is $13.
Yeah, it's great. And so, it's just got that tannic structure that really cries out for meat. But I'm gonna have a bite of my vegetarian burger with it.
Yeah, I want to know how that is.
I'm probably gonna drop it or get sesame seeds in my teeth in between. But
as long as it's not seaweed in your teeth.
It's so good.
Is it? Awesome.
Oh, it's perfect. It's so good. Oh my gosh. Do you know Kewpie mayonnaise, Laura?
Yeah, of course.
It has some MSG in it. It's Japanese mayonnaise with MSG, and I put it with everything. This is really, really good. It kind of, the fat in the mayonnaise kind of takes away the tannins in the wine, and it's just, this fruit just pops. And awesome. I gotta tell you, we think about ketchup. Ketchup is like a fruit sauce with acid on a meat, and that's what wine is. So if anything you put ketchup on, try it with some wine.
Right, exactly. And this wine can really take a lot of flavor. Yeah.
It is. It's a really good balance. It goes back and forth from like structure to fruit when you're tasting.
I was trying to figure out what was going on, but you have a way of always capturing.
Yeah,
I think what's happening with the wine.
Yeah, it goes back and forth. It's who knows
Yeah,
tongue.
you get the earth, the spice, the fruit.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So the second thing I have is our lamb meatballs.
Okay.
And so what I did was I made some. So I just took some ground lamb, and like I said, it was Suzanne Gowen's recipe, and it's a little bit of cream, onion diced, egg yolks, 1 egg yolk, ground cinnamon,
Okay.
ground cumin, red pepper flakes, cayenne, salt, pepper, breadcrumbs, and chopped parsley. And then, like I said, I threw in a little bit of mint just because mint is so good with lamb. So I just made some meatballs.
Laura, pardon my ignorance, but is ground lamb easy to find?
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
I don't ever look for lamb. I never thought of it, but
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, it's always there. And if it's not there, you can always just have your butcher grind it.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Right,
So just
cool.
buy like a lot of times you'll see lamb stew, so lamb in cubes at the grocer or at the butcher, but just ask them to grind it for you.
Oh, amazing. Okay.
Yeah. So we have our lamb, and so same thing. Because I'm urban, I don't have a backyard barbecue, so I pre-bake these, and then I just toss them on the grill pan to finish cooking. And what that also does, like we talked about, was it doesn't fill your house up with smoke.
Right.
If you're inside, because I'm on a high-rise apartment, so I can't have a grill.
Right.
But you still want that flavor. You kind of want it's just a fun thing. It just says, hey, it's summertime, let's grill.
Exactly.
So you can still kind of get that with this. And then
does the egg is what binds it together?
The egg and the breadcrumbs together.
And the breadcrumbs. Okay. And so you are baking them to be a little more efficient on the grill, but they are going to hold together enough that you could just go right to the grill.
They could, yeah. I mean, even if we can do it now, I'll do a couple. I'll just do a couple.
Oh, you got it all ready to go. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll just put a couple on here. So, and you can skewer them. And again, people see a whole tray of these gorgeous grilled lamb meatballs are going to take a ton. So that's why I just skewer them, put them on 3 at a time. I've certainly been guilty of that.
That's smart.
But just put them on, and then, less to throw out at the end of the day. So,
yeah, really.
So I'm just going to put those on there, and they're already sizzling, and I just have it on low.
Okay.
So, oops, I don't have it on at all. I put it on. So, and then as I mentioned, I didn't put it in. These need to freeze a little bit more. But I'm always thinking of fun ways to serve food, because we always talk about we eat with our eyes first.
Exactly.
So, so I made these little blue cheese butter hearts.
Okay.
And I had this little heart ice cube mold. So I just poured that in, but it just needs a little more time. So I'm just going to, so lamb and blue cheese. And blue cheese and Cabernet are, again, so I'm using my fingers here, so forgive me.
Good.
But you can just brush some blue cheese butter on when they're really hot, and just let the blue cheese butter melt over it. And the way I did it, I just took a chunk of butter and a chunk of blue cheese, the same amount, and just let them soften. Mm-hmm. Let them come to room temperature. You can bring them out the night before, or if you're in a pinch, just pop them in the microwave for 10, 15 seconds, soften them up, and then just mix them together.
Okay. Do you see Alex? Alex Medina's like, are you making my dinner right now, Laura?
Alex.
He knows where he's heading over to now.
It's his birthday tonight. Yes, Alex, as a
happy
matter
birthday,
of fact.
Alex.
Right? And so I did the same thing here with basil. I had a bunch of basil that was starting. It was it would last maybe another minute. So I just chopped up the basil, softened some butter, and then I just rolled it in parchment paper and formed it into a log and froze it.
Okay.
So if you want to do a lamb steak or a steak slab, just cut a piece of it, and as soon as you take it off the grill, melt it on there, and it just the flavor is just off the charts. It's so unbelievable. Mm. So I've got the blue cheese here, and then let's try it with the Tapiz.
Yeah,
now,
you do freeze the butter. Odila was asking if you freeze the butter. You roll it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you can put it in the fridge and it'll last about a week because of the herbs in it. The herbs will start to disintegrate, but you can put it in the freezer, and it's good for a year.
Just wrapped in paper, or do you use your glass jar trick?
I put it in parchment.
And then just throw that in the parchment in the freezer like that?
I put it in a Ziploc.
Oh,
So I
okay.
wrap it up, like I shape it like a log,
Mm-hmm.
and then I put it in a Ziploc in the freezer.
Okay, perfect.
Because you don't want it to get freezer burn, and all the other
The herbs and stuff, yeah.
smells will attach itself to it. So so we've got our lamb meatball, and I'm going to put a little bit more blue cheese on this just because I love blue cheese.
And I think we should do the wapisa with this because, and maybe this is a good time to show the map. We're going to come back to the Tapiz when you're done. Finish what you're doing. Finish what you're doing.
I was just going to eat.
Oh, okay. Well, let's eat and have a bite and a taste.
That's right. Let's see. Okay, we'll do the wapisa. So wapisa means whale, and that's representative of this vineyard is so close to the Atlantic Ocean, and it represents. So the whales swim by all the time. So that's where that came from. But
that's crazy.
Oh, blue cheese and lamb are just so good together.
Oh wow! This for me brings out the very umami notes of the of my seaweed burger. What's it doing for your meatball?
Yeah, it's really bringing out the spices. Like I'm really tasting like the cinnamon, the cayenne. Yeah, it amps it up.
100%.
And the interesting thing is that it's a slightly different color than the other two that are from Luján and the Uco Valley. Is it Uco?
Uco Valley, yeah.
Uco Valley and Mendoza. So really interesting. Like you said, it's got a little bit of that salinity from the ocean.
Yeah. So Odila asked what I'm eating. Odila, there's this brand called Akua that makes seaweed burgers. They're pea protein, mushroom, and seaweed. Because Laura's got to know a lot of umami going over there, so I wanted to match that with my limited kitchen and cooking skills. So I'm having a vegetarian burger. Laura and I did a cooking with seaweed a couple weeks ago, and so it was a little bit of a joke for Laura too, because she's mad at me for making her buy so much seaweed.
So
how's she ever going to use it all up? But she's going to make seaweed burgers now.
Anybody needs seaweed, come to my house. So I'm going to be really geeky and show the map, but I love it. So if you can see, here is Uco and Mendoza right here. So the Tapiz and the Zolo are very close to each other. Over here on the western side. But then you go all the way down here, and this is Patagonia. So this is Rio Negro, the upper Rio Negro and lower Rio Negro. You guys see this here?
Yep.
But this vineyard is actually all the way on this edge here. The box is covering it, but it's 20 miles from the ocean, 25 miles from the ocean, right here, and it's the only vineyard in Patagonia that's so close to the water. That's in this region.
If people are confused, the map is flipped just like a mirror image, so it's east to west, just because that's what Instagram does. It's not you.
Oh, okay.
But in my conversation with Patricia, she reminded me that where in Patagonia, where all the wineries are from, for like 100 years they've been making wine, and it's like the breadbasket or the garden of Patagonia, where it's where the desert meets the mountains, and so it's very fertile, and that's where a lot of the fruits are from. But she wanted, usually you want crappy soil for your grapes because you want your vines to struggle and to dig down in the roots. And so she's near the ocean, which gives it some spiciness from the soil, a little bit of a salinity freshness from the ocean, but she's close to that river that empties into the ocean. And so she's able to get a little bit of that water for irrigating. And so it's very unusual, but that's why she's doing it. And then also what's fascinating is she is aging that wine underwater. She's put it in magnums. She put it in magnums. She waxed the caps, and then they have this lock on the thing, and they put it in these crates, and they're down, I think it's 30 feet, I think 10 meters, so it's 1 atmosphere below water, I believe. And we talked during the quarantine. They weren't able to ship everything up, but she's experimenting with what the aging's like underwater. Just like Petrus went into space to see what it does to fish. But speaking of that, Jean-Claude Barrouet was the winemaker at Petrus for so long. He's the consultant winemaker for all 3 of these. So you have this pedigree. And I got to say, there's something that he gets with Merlot in Petrus. There's something that he gets out of these Cabernets. There's just this intenseness that he's able to to draw out of these grapes, which is really something special.
You know, and they're all pretty young. I mean, they're what, 2018s?
They're all 2018.
But they're all beautiful. I mean, they're all so drinkable. You know, like yesterday I went to a Bordeaux tasting and it was 2018s, and it was just like, you know, it was
they're young, they're
like,
barrel samples.
These are babies.
Yeah.
These are babies. And you know, but these are so beautiful and drinkable. And I think the Wapisa for me is a little bit softer, which I really like that. But yeah, I mean, with the Petrus pedigree.
Yeah, exactly. And Anna just joined us. Anna, we're talking about Tapiz, Bodegas Tapiz, which includes Zolo and Wapisa in the Uco Valley in Patagonia. I glossed over your reaction to the meatballs with the wine. It was good.
Oh, they're delicious. I think because the Wapisa is just just a tad softer than the Zolo. And so it really went well because the blue cheese, while being sharp, you also get that creaminess with it.
Right.
And
so that kind of soaks up those tannins, the fat and the cheese.
Yeah.
Did you notice that it brings out the you said it brings out the herbs and spices, right?
Yeah, but just in just a really beautifully smooth way. You know, Cabernet can be big, and but
nice.
Yeah. So I've got my meatballs here almost done.
I'm having a bite of my hamburger.
So okay. So here I just grilled the meatballs on the grill pan, and they stayed intact perfectly. And I'm just gonna rub some blue cheese on them. So like you said, you can definitely, you know, you can do it ahead of time if you want to save yourself some time standing in front of the grill, or and just throw them on at the end, or just put them on the grill. They'll definitely stay together because you've got the egg yolk and the breadcrumbs.
Right.
Not blue cheese.
That spice in the wine
so
really
good.
brings out again the mayo in my dish and the seaweed umami.
Right. And this brings out like that you know, the egg, all the flavors, the creaminess of the blue cheese.
Does the mint just integrate, or the cumin? Because I'm always fascinated with cumin. Whenever I taste cumin, I think of my mom's chili. And does it kind of meld in together, or does it pop out with the wine?
It pops out a little bit. I'm not a big cumin fan, so I always go easy on the cumin, but you can definitely get that. I definitely got it on the last taste. But yeah, actually, I think I'm going to pour a little more because it's so darn good. Cheers. We haven't cheersed.
You're right. Cheers.
Cheers. I can't reach the camera. Awesome. That's so good. Such a great pairing. It's just, I mean, it's so many big flavors, but they don't overpower each other.
Right.
They go really well together, and you get all the flavors. That's what I love. It's not just a big flavor. It's a big flavor of blue cheese, and a big flavor of umami, and a big flavor of cinnamon, and a big flavor, you know, every flavor you can really taste. So
right. Well, and these wines are, like you're saying, it's not overpowering. It's an accompaniment to the food, which is again, I kind of like to think of wine as a sauce. It's the sauce for the food.
It's such a great way to think about it. Because you see, when you're pairing, you usually want to pair the sauce with the wine.
Right. Exactly.
So
exactly.
I think you taught me that, Jeff. You taught me everything I know about wine.
Oh, come on.
Yes, it's true. So should we move to our charcuterie?
I think so. And this is for people like me, that if you're showing up for a barbecue and you don't have the wherewithal to make a potato salad or bring your skewers, you can go and get a charcuterie little put together thing. And tell us what you got for charcuterie. So
I got Marcona almonds.
Okay.
These are a little different, and they're from Spain, but you know, similar. And what you can do a lot of things with these almonds. So you can toss them in a little olive oil and rosemary, and some sea salt, or if you've got some truffle salt, you can put some truffle salt on it. So there's a lot of things you can do with Marconas to amp up the flavor, and they're really creamy almonds. That's what I love about them.
Can you educate me, because we have them on our charcuterie board at the restaurant, and they always have a little bit of oil in them. Do they? They don't come like that. The chef is tossing them in oil. I should know this, but do they come with a little bit of oil?
They come both ways. So they get like these came dry,
Okay.
just salted, roasted and salted. But I bought them before where they're in oil.
Oh, okay.
So it's really, you can do whatever you want with it. It's one of those really super versatile almonds. And it doesn't have that strong almond flavor that you get from regular roasted almonds. It's just, again, it's that creaminess that comes in this.
Well, and
it's got enough flavor.
The thing to remember with nuts is there's a lot of fat in nuts. And the skin, the brown skin that is not in a Marcona almond because they've taken it off, but the skin of the almond, and especially in a walnut, is super, super tannic. So they very often clash with a big red. And that's why your perfect pairing here is you've got the fat of the nut and the creamy texture, but you don't have those competing tannins. Right,
exactly. So that was the first thing. And then prosciutto, or if you have the Iberico jamon, that would be even better. But I have some prosciutto. So that's, again, it's like, it's that umami flavor. It's that salty, beautiful, sweet prosciutto. Goes so well with the Cabernet. And then Manchego, of course, again, similar to the almonds, it's got a great flavor, but it's got a creaminess to it, which goes really well with the Cab. And then, of course, blue cheese. I always think of blue cheese and Sauterne, but then when I tried the blue cheese with the Cab, it was, you know, again, your 2 + 2 is 5. It was so good together. And you can even, I have some honey here. You can even put some honey on it with the Cab because it'll add a little bit of sweetness. But what was I going to show? Oh, I know. So what I do is whenever you have a cheese rind, a hard cheese rind, I definitely do this with Parmesan, but if there's a hard cheese rind, save these. I have a little baggie in the freezer. I save these. And then when I make stock, I just throw a couple in the stock pot.
Really?
And it just, it gives it just a touch of richness.
Okay.
It's really interesting. I learned this years ago and I've always done it. So
that's brilliant. Does it fall apart, or do you need to put it in like a little cheesecloth?
No, it just gets soft and mushy, and you just you strain it out with the bones and the herbs and everything. But it just adds I don't know how to describe it. You're better at describing these.
It's an umami depth. It's an unctuous depth to your broth.
Right, unctuous. That was the word I was going for. Yeah, it just adds a layer to it. A little, unctuous.
Well, I think
perfect word.
That Manchego has this very subtle. You're kind of looking at the Rhone Valley, those herbal notes, and that it kind of brings you back to the Cabernet because there's a little of that herbal note in these Cabernets, but in like Old World and generally in Cabernet, there's a little herbal thing.
So I just tried it with the Tapiz, and it is so beautiful together. Yeah, they both. This is another 2 + 2 is 5. It just it brightens up both, so it really accentuates the cheese flavor, and then and then the cheese, of course, highlights the beautiful fruit notes in the Cabernet, the fruit and earth notes. Well, the reason I wanted to do a little charcuterie and cheese here is I was teaching a wine class a few weeks ago, pairing wine and cheese, and somebody said to me, "Oh, I didn't realize that specific wines went with specific cheeses." I said, "I just thought wine went with cheese." Right. And so that's why I really wanted to emphasize this. Like, wines do go with cheese, but there's certain wines go better with certain cheeses.
Right.
So this is a great way to do it. I've done receptions, little cocktail happy hours here, where I've had 4 or 5 platters of different cheeses and then the wine that would go with each of them. So it gives people a chance to taste and sample and pair them and then also to cross pair them to see what other things work and then see what other things don't work. So so it's a really interesting way to showcase it.
Sure.
But this Tapiz, so Tapiz means tapestry, and I think Patricia had said in her notes that really weaving the tapestry of the terroir.
Oh, that's beautiful.
This one is Uco. I think this guy is Valle de Uco, at the foothills of the Andes Mountains. And so this is, I think, at 4,600 feet. I think that's right.
Higher
4,600 feet. So so you're not going to have, so it's brighter than, say, a Napa Cab.
Yeah, 4,430. But can you talk
Yeah.
about the saltiness of the meat? Because don't, again, it's like very often on our charcuterie board, you'll get a quince paste or a fruit paste. And I think a blackberry paste and like that. And that is cooked fruit, and Cabernet can go that way, but this is still fresh, but there's that bridge component. And when you have a prosciutto, it's salty and textured and depth of flavor from the umami. But there's a little bit of a salty and sweet thing that goes on here. These wines are definitely not sweet, but there's a richness that kind of pings that sweet receptor in your brain.
Right, exactly. So when we're cooking and we want to add flavor to something, we either add fat or salt. Those are the two de facto ways to amp up flavor. Another way to amp up flavor, a more healthy way, is acid, but it's salt, and so it's always going to amplify whatever it is that you're drinking. So, I mean, the prosciutto is a perfect example because there's that beautiful earthy salt in there, a little bit of sweetness, and that just amplifies the flavors of the wine. So you always want to. So that's another thing to consider when you're pairing your wines. And I know we've been trained to think that salt is a bad thing, but it's actually a good thing because it can really. I always tell people take a tomato and cut 2 wedges, and taste one wedge plain, and then put some really good sea salt or fleur de sel on the second wedge and taste it. And the flavor just goes off the charts.
Yeah.
A friend of mine's husband swore off tomatoes until I did that with him, and now he loves tomatoes. So it can really, really bring out the flavor.
It brings up flavor. What do you think of? Because I had heard also you can add a little bit of. I mean, doesn't really apply to what we're doing, but a little bit of heat does that too. A little bit of a chili, not enough to like make it hot and spicy, but chilies can do that too. I put a little bit of habanero. We put habaneros in vodka and then add drops of that vodka to a margarita and make it a spicy margarita because heat amplifies those fruit things too, right?
Yeah, it sure does. And also as we get older, not that we're old, but
exactly.
as other people get older, your taste buds fade.
Yeah.
And so that's why people add sriracha or hot sauce to something, because it brings out more flavor in it. So yeah, absolutely.
Can I ask, we've gone through an entire meal here, so we're going to kind of start to wrap this up. You have done a lot of chocolate stuff, and Anna, I think maybe she's still on here, has done a lot of stuff with chocolate. Which of these would you put with a chocolate, and what kind of chocolate? I'm putting you on the spot, so you can decline to answer. But
I'm going to take the 5th. No, I'm kidding.
You have done that.
So the thing, we always hear about chocolate and red wine, especially on Valentine's Day. It's chocolate and red wine. The reason they go well together is they both have that. Chocolate has a good chocolate has a bitterness to it.
Right.
And the Cabernets have that as well in the tannins. So for me, that's why they go well together.
Okay.
The best pairing with chocolate is a sweet wine, as you know. That's the ultimate, because when you're pairing with desserts or sweet foods, the wine needs to be as sweet as or sweeter.
Right.
Otherwise, it clashes. But for this one, I would probably do chocolate with the Wapisa, because that, I hope I'm saying it right, is for me, it's the smoothest of these two and of these three. And so I think that I would probably pair it with that one.
Yeah, that makes sense. And the spices. That's another bringing up bitter. Americans are afraid of bitterness. There's a really good cookbook called Bitter. Yeah. And she explains that in Europe, if you made a fruit tart, you'd burn it a little bit, and it just that bitterness adds a little bit of tension, so it's not just a sugar bomb. Whereas in America, it's like a McDonald's fruit, whatever you call it, thing, a pastelli or whatever. It's just all sugar and fruit, and we don't have any bitterness. But that adds a tension and a liveliness to it, and it kind of, just like you said, salt and acid, and I was mentioning heat. It's another component that kind of lifts everything and kind of. It lifts you out of your seat a little bit, and we're afraid of bitters. But we can talk about tannins in that way, but there's a bitterness there. These wines are very balanced in that respect, but it's something to pay attention to, I think.
Yeah, I mean, our palates, our Americans' palates are so addicted to sweet.
Right.
Because it's the high fructose corn syrup that's in everything imaginable. Exactly. So they do. So there is that hesitation toward anything bitter.
Exactly.
But it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing.
Yeah.
And it's a delicious thing, especially, in the wines and in chocolate. You never think of chocolate as being bitter, but in dark chocolate, there's actually a lot of bitterness to it. But it just adds to the complexity of it and the interestingness of it. And I always say that's the thing about wine. If there weren't acid in the wine, if there weren't bitterness in the wine, it would just be like drinking grape juice. Or in the case of Sauterne, it would just be like drinking maple syrup. So it really just it makes it so beautiful. So
100%.
Yeah.
Did we cover everything? You made so much food, and we're at 40 minutes, and you've made it so easy and organized that I think we're done, right?
I think so. Yeah, we did our lamb meatballs, and again from Suzanne Gowen's recipe from the AOC cookbook, AOC in LA, and it had like I said, a little bit of cream and an egg yolk, cinnamon, cumin, pepper flakes, a little bit of cayenne, like we talked about, giving it that kick, which definitely came through. Pepper, breadcrumbs, and chopped parsley, and then I threw in a little mint because it's impossible for me to follow a recipe. And then we brushed it at the end with a little bit of the blue cheese butter, which just takes it to a whole other level. And that went beautifully with the wapisa. We started out with the marinated steak. So it was some ponzu, some soy sauce or tamari if you can't do gluten or don't want to do gluten. And then just a lot of herbs, some ginger in here, herbs and spices, and marinated that. And then put that on the grill. Then I grilled it with some tomatoes and served it over a bed of caramelized onions. So just, again, packed with all these different great umami flavors, or flavors that have umami, or food that has umami, big umami components to them. And we paired that with the Zolo, which Zolo is a pretty big wine, and it paired beautifully. Like one didn't overpower the other, which was great. Yeah. And then we went to our charcuterie, so our Marcona almonds, the creamy almonds, the manchego, again, a creamy cheese, but with a great flavor that really went well with the tapiz. And again, the salt from the prosciutto really brought out the wine, and then the blue cheese just just take things to a whole other level with 100%. Not only Cabernet, but Sauterne or sweet wine. So yeah, I think we've covered everything. Awesome.
Well, thank you.
Come on over for dinner.
Thank you for all the work you've done. We keep saying if I lived down the hallway for
I know.
like we'd never get any work done. But when you cook like
we'd
this,
eat and drink all day.
I'm coming over for dinner.
I wish you would. Hop a plane.
Yeah. Well,
now that we can.
Now that we can, exactly. Well, Laura, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, as always. Thank you so much.
Talk to you soon, and everybody stay tuned for more Cooking with Laura, Cucinatestarossa. All right, honey. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.